get started here, I'm going to keep admitting people in because we still have some. Up to 99 already here. So today it's all going to be about driving high performance. Okay, so we're going to get started. And driving high performance wherever your people are located. With lockdowns and home working and everything, people can be working from anywhere these days. And that's the way things will be in the future too. So I don't think everything is going to go back to everybody being at offices. Probably going to have a blend. And so, if you think about your own leadership skills and so forth, you're going to have to be able to manage people wherever they are. And you're going to have a blend of people who are going to be both in the office and outside of the office. And you're going to have to learn to manage those environments that way. And it's really around creating an environment where everybody can do their best and you get the highest performance out of everybody. So, let me just quickly bring up one particular issue right at the beginning. I mean, the key thing, if you really want to drive high performance, is you have to have a common understanding what high is, or what is the good performance you want. And one general that I followed a lot of leadership ideas from, he had three questions that he asked his people. First one was, what's the plan? What are you going to deliver and by when? The second one, who's in charge? He always wanted a name, someone who's going to take accountability. But the third question was always this: compared to what? What are you comparing performance to? Because if you have an easy comparison, performance isn't going to be that high. And so it's so important as a leader to really define what is high performance. And high performance in one part of the company might look differently in another part of the company and it might not be high enough, all right? It'd be too low. So I think it's so important when you have your people to have a shared understanding of what high performance is or what that performance is. And think about this too. Good performance or high performance is you can't choose what good is without a comparison. So you have to compare it to something. And so either you have a shared understanding of what really high performance is as a team, or you have to have a comparison to like a benchmark or to last year or something. But if your people don't know what high performance is, they're certainly not going to be able to deliver it. Okay, so keep in mind that right off the bat, it's so important for us as leaders to make very clear what this high performance is or what the performance is we want, and have our people share that as well. Okay, so keep that in your head as we go through these things. And we're going to talk about some ideas, and basically we're going to talk about some 5 keys today. But I want to share a couple things up front first too. you know High performance really requires a strong direction and a team to go make it happen. If you think about it, if everything is down just to the leader of doing these things, and if it's only the leader who understands the direction and everything, and the team doesn't understand the direction, you're not going to get very much in terms of high performance from people. And what I found with very, very successful teams and so forth is that the leader is stated, and it gets everybody to understand the direction. So it's a very, very strong direction that kind of pulls people to do what they need to do. And the real key is that you want a pulling power so that people have to use their potential to go make it happen. And then when you build a strong team together to do that, then the 1 plus 1 equals 3 or 10 or whatever, and that you're really getting people organized around it that way. So keep in mind that is that it's so important. I've never seen a very successful organization who really didn't have a very strong direction on what they're doing. And I haven't seen an organization that doesn't have strong teamwork to go make it happen. Now, if you think about it, and if you heard me talking before, I talk about micromanagement coming with a speed limit, right? So you're not going to have high performance and speed if you micromanage your people. And so what it's so important, if you think about you've won high performance, is that you have to have everybody understanding the direction, and you have to have them working together so that they're determining their own how. The micromanagers are telling the how, but if you have people who understand the direction well and they're working together, they can define and work on their own how. Now, if you have very, very strong direction, you don't even have to tell them what to do. They can find out their own what to do that. So, what I found is that if you have a very strong where and you have very strong teamwork, they not only figure out the how, but they can also figure out the what. And so I found this. Think about this. If you're always telling your people what to do, you're not going to have true high performance, because if you have a strong direction and the right people, they can figure out some of that what by themselves. Okay? So if you think about where you make the biggest difference in your organization, is making the where very, very strong, and working on building the strongest team that can go make it happen. So keep in mind that high performance requires, you know, both a strong direction and a strong team. Now, the second thing is, I want to, before I talk about the keys, is high performance is really an and, right? It's delivering today, but also creating the future. And I found that the very best leaders, they can hold what could be two different conflicting thoughts in their head, or requirements, and they can make the best decisions and choices as to what to move forward. So they take action and they deliver both of those. They can deliver today, but they're making progress on creating that future. And I think that's a real key in terms of very successful leaders, is that they're very strong in terms of their own mind to have those two thoughts there. I don't know if you ever heard the expression of this, is that make sure that the important competes with the urgent. And I think from a leadership perspective, you want high performance, make sure that the future competes with today. Because today will always be in your face. It'll always be, right there for you to do. That today, the urgent and everything, but you're not always going to put all the right resources or your headspace on the future, unless you make the future a dominant thought. And I found that the most successful people are putting the future as a dominant thought, so that when the issues of today come, they're balancing that out. I realized this from, I'm a golfer. And in fact, to be honest, I only went to college first to play golf, because I was recruited to play golf in university. And golfers have two different thoughts in their head all the time, and they manage it. Like, they think they're going to make every putt, but if they miss it, they're not disappointed, and they just get on with it and so forth. And so keep that in mind. The more you control your own head, and keeping both of those there, and having the future as a dominant thought, to make sure you're not only just working on today, you're going to have a higher performing team, because they're going to create that future faster. Okay. I'll tell you a quick funny one, is that I read up a lot about sports psychology, and particularly golf, because I really enjoy the sport. And there was one of the top golf coaches, mental coaches, in the world, and he was talking about the importance of managing your mind and managing your thoughts, especially of having this and in your head and so forth. And one guy in his audience one time says, "Yeah, I think it's very easy to manage our thoughts." And so he gave this kind of funny example. He says, the time he did this was years ago, when Cindy Crawford was a famous, was really, his famous model and everything. And he said, listen, he says, let me give you this. Cindy Crawford's in town, and she's at her hotel tonight. And, she wants you to come over to her hotel at 7. And at 7:30, you're going to have wild, passionate sex. And that will happen only if you can never, ever think about Cindy Crawford between now and 7 o'clock at night. Okay. So, for sure, he's going to think about that. So it's a matter of controlling our mind that way. But here's what I found: the most successful leaders can keep a dominant thought of the future there, so that we're also working on the future as you deliver today. Okay. So keep that in mind in terms of your own being able to have the future compete with today. So you're always making progress forward, and you can always, give the strong direction for your team. Okay. So there's a couple things I wanted to share. Now, couple things before I said 5 keys, is just remember these 3 things. If you attended any of my virtual master classes before or anything, I talk about outcomes all the time. Okay. So as a basis, you always have to be focusing people on outcomes. Focus them on progress and achievement versus activity, and think and discuss in outcomes with your people. So that's definitely key. The other one is nose in, fingers out. I mean, you're not going to have a high performing team if you have to be around all the time and tell them what to do. So for sure, you should be more nose in, fingers out, and use your power of ask versus tell. And then the last one, you can't have a high performing team if everything comes back to you all the time. So think about this. Once you know what, why, and when, you know, think who, and remember, if you don't have a who, the who is always going to be you. Okay. So keep that in mind. So remember outcomes, NIFO, and who. Now let's talk about the 5 keys. Now, driving high performance, there's a lot of things you can do. But I found these 5 things are very important for your people to be able to drive that performance without you always being there. Okay. And what's interesting, and when I share these, is that, once I got further in my career, I thought leadership success was this. My job is to organize that the right people are talking about the right things, focus the right way, and the right conversations, and I'm not in all those conversations. In other words, they're able to do this on their own more. And so I found that these 5 things enable high performance without me always having to be there. Okay, so that's the goal that we're going to share today. Okay, so think about this. You need a strong direction. Andy Stanley said it the best, where a strong direction is, it's a mental picture of what could be and should be. So if you engage your people as much as you can, more and more, on what could be and what should be, the possibilities and why you can do that. And the more they hold this direction in their head as a dominant thought, the more action they're going to take, not only creating, delivering today, but creating the future that way. Okay. And I think in many ways, leadership is that. Oftentimes, leaders is you want to create a dominant thought in your people, and you want to keep coming back and watering it and make it strong. Some leaders think, well, I'm going to set the direction at the beginning of the year, and this will stay solidly in people's mind. Well, today, how things change, a direction today might not be exactly the direction 3 months from now, or you have to redefine it in a certain way or make it specific to work through the current challenges. So I'd say is as much as you can, create a strong direction in your people. But I've never seen a high performing team without a sense of urgency. So once you create that strong direction, and once you create, the performance you want, or the criteria, what good is and so forth, make sure that you're monitoring the milestones and you're ensuring the pace. One of the biggest issues when you see in the construction industry or so forth, projects get behind schedule all the time, is because they're not managing the pace. And you accept a day off here, a day behind here, and suddenly you're a week or 2 weeks behind that way. There's a very good book out there called Critical Chain, which talks about, how you manage projects and where you put the padding and everything. But the critical thing that I found in leadership is you have to manage the pace. And I'll give you a tip. Not only reward performance, uh, but reward the pace on that performance. Because I don't know about you, but often, when one department is behind on a certain project or a certain initiative, it often causes problems for other departments too. So I found that, and in one of the jobs, I actually gave people projects, and I paid them on whether they delivered the project on time and to the performance needed. But I also subtracted from their bonus if they missed a couple of the milestones along the way too. Okay, so keep that in mind. Keep the focus of your people, what's possible, and what could be and should be, but also find a way to reinforce that pace as well. And I think a good thing for you guys to think about for yourself now is, think about how you need to communicate the direction with your team and how you're going to constantly reinforce that direction. In fact, in almost every coaching moment where you have, you're going to have to keep watering that direction in your people. And a good brainstorm for sometimes with your people is to come back and brainstorm with ideas about what could be and should be, so that that vision, that direction becomes more personal for them. And when it becomes personal for them, they take a hell of a lot more action that way. Okay, so keep that in mind. Make its direction as strong as you can. Ensure that you're monitoring the pace on that direction, and try to have it as a dominant thought for your people. Plant those thoughts and keep coming back and watering it. It's not a once a year type of thing, but it's constantly keeping the direction in their mind that way. So the direction is the first one. But the second keys around this is to have the right principles. I heard this once and said, an organization is only as successful as the people at the bottom want it to be. So, keep in mind that, you know, if they don't want it to be successful, and if they're not able to make decisions at a pace that you'd like them to make it, then all the decisions keep coming up to you. And I found this to be the case. Principles flow down and decisions flow up. And so when decisions are made more in terms of where the level in the organization where work is done, you're getting faster progress, you're getting higher performance that way. And so I think decisions about the how are often, they need to be done at the bottom, but lower and lower decisions about what needs to be done is so key. That's why I said at the beginning, talking about getting a strong direction, the where, so your people can make more decisions, not only on the how, but on the what. And principles are interesting things. Principles can change over time, but principles can be, like Amazon's Jeff Bezos 2 pizza rule. We're not going to have meeting sizes with any people with people more than what could feed 2 pizzas. Or one of the principles one of my bosses had one time is, if you want to put something on the agenda for the team, you got to give the materials out 24 hours before if you want any decisions made on that. And if the materials weren't out 24 hours before for everybody, then that agenda item was taken off. A principle can be, that, do equals say, for that, I mean, if you make a commitment, you do it. Or like, I think, what was it, Colin Powell? He had a principle of saying is that, you can argue, you can disagree with everything until the decision is made. But once a decision is made, everybody falls in line. That's another principle. But what I found with very high performing teams is they all have principles, and they have different principles that guide the right behavior, either in terms of people's commitment or in collaboration of the team. And many of you from the UK in today's session is that you remember the England rugby team a number of years ago when they won the World Cup. They had something called teamship rules. And teamship rules, that actually the team made it in terms of guiding behavior. And I think their rule for on time was, for any meetings or events or anything they had to do as a team, that they were there 5 minutes before. Okay. So keep in mind that for yourself. Think about your own teams. What principles could help guide the performance in your team? When I was leading and I had people everywhere and different things, I had a principle saying this: if you have an issue, pick up the phone, send an SMS or something, but deal with the issue right away. Don't send emails and don't copy in the world, and suddenly the issue becomes even more bigger and bigger. So, think about these principles for yourself. And if you have any ideas on principles, type it into the chat function. principles that you use for your own organization. Because what I found is that if organizations don't and the leaders don't have any principles, it doesn't make the desired behavior top of mind in their people that way. Like Bezos' two pizza rule. So if there was 20, 30 people in the room, probably, and he came in, he would be very angry. So work on the principles and the principles that would guide the right behaviors. You don't need tons of them, you know. So keep on, yeah, a team charter. You mentioned here, it's a, it's kind of, sometimes it can be a policy, sometimes it can be a procedure, but it's something that really goes forward. And it really wants, you want to get your people behaving in a way that drives the right collaboration, but also ensures that they're doing the right commitment as well. Okay. So, any questions or comments, Ken? Okay. So, let me share with you the next one: visibility. In fact, when I was running my organizations, I was looking at, what do I want, what do I need the organization to deliver? What's the direction and so forth. And then the second thing I was always thinking about was visibility. What can I make visible? Now, if you think about this for yourself, you've got two powers as a leader. You have why power. It pulls your people to do what you want them to do, right? It's an emotional power. But you also have boss power. You can tell them what to do. That pushes people to do what they want to do. But the more you use the why, the more you make it more emotional and so forth, the more power you have. So it increases the more you use it. But the more you tell your people what to do, they start to get immune to being told what to do. Your power decreases. So what I found with successful leadership, it's a combination of push and pull. But where visibility comes in is visibility is push without pushing. So think about it. When you make things visible, people need to deliver or their personal reputation takes a hit. But also think about this way. If you make something visible and it's someone's responsibility and they deliver a fantastic job, they're going to feel tremendous pride. So, that's the thing with visibility is it creates both accountability and pride in people's work just by making those things visible. Now, let me ask you a quick question. Type it in the chat function. Why would some leaders not like to make things visible? Any ideas? Anybody having ideas on the call? Why would some leaders not like to make things visible? Type it in. Yeah, there are insecurities, their power. Yeah, they don't want to share the credit. They want to credit themselves. So think, if you're a leader and you're needy and you need to have attention, the power, all these things, and also there's another good comment by Sarah, they don't have a plan there. But if you're needy, then everything is coming to you. You want recognition for everything, and you're not giving your people the power that way. So what I found is think about this for yourself. What can you make visible to ensure that people stick to their commitments? It's as simple as, if at the end of the meeting, write down what people commit. Beginning of the next meeting, review and just show very quickly who delivered, who didn't. That's there. A simple way to create pride in someone and accountability too. Let's say you share what this project this person is going to deliver and you put it in a presentation to higher management, right? Now, now, you show them the presentation that where their name is there and what they're going to deliver by when. They can't afford to fail because it's known by so many people. But think about this. They deliver a super job and they know that all this management knows they delivered a super job. Now they're thinking, wow, this is great. This is great. It's great having people who know I did a great job because that's helpful for my career. So what I'd say is that you only need the right visibility when you're going for accountability to drive the right behavior. If you make too much visible, you create competition. And if you create competition in the wrong way, then you get the bad behaviors. So I found work on visibility for accountability in steps. If you get the right behavior, you don't need any more. But you always need to make things visible because you want to drive tremendous pride in the organization that way. Okay. And when you amplify the pride with that why power, the pull, it's amazing what your people can accomplish in that in their work that way. So, so think about visibility for your own team. I've never seen a successful team or a high performing organization that didn't have things visible, and also they didn't celebrate a lot, make it very visible what people were achieving that way. And in some ways the best organizations make sometimes a little more visible the learnings from failures that they move forward with. Okay. So we talked about having a very strong direction, so that people have a target that way. We talked about the principles that so it guides their behavior. Now here we're talking about visibility, which guides people's commitment and pride within the organization. And then the other one we're going to talk about here is collaboration. You're going to need a team that's going to be able to collaborate. And I use the collaboration. I used to think of it this way: trust, information sharing, and processes. And I used to call it glue. And we'd have a brainstorm every quarter, and we'd ask ourselves, how's our glue? How's our glue? Is it strong enough? Or is there something we need to do in terms of building trust, getting people to share information more, or maybe there's some processes broken? Okay. But let me ask you a quick question. Type in a chat function. Can your organizations be successful if people only follow documented processes? Can they be successful only documented process? No, no. Can you have a high performing team only following processes? Probably not, right? So the thing is that what's driving a high performing team is not the processes, but it's the people who trust each other and people that are sharing information. And there's two things I found with the foundation for these trusts. One is that they have common interests, and people that have common interests, they always have a conversation starter. So whether they're located in different places, they can always pick up the phone and they can talk about their children the same age, or the same football team they like, or their hobby. And they can always create rapport very quickly and get things done. So I found the foundation of some of this is first common interests, but another strong foundation of a high performing team is diversity. Now, let me give you an idea here. Let's say if you have everybody on your team who's alike, they have similar skills, similar strengths, and so forth. People that are alike will they want to feel unique. And to feel unique, and if they're alike, they're going to compete with each other so that they can feel unique. But if you have a team of diversity, they're already unique. So they don't have to compete to be unique. They're more apt to collaborate. So what I found is that when you lack diversity, you get more kind of stupid competition because people want to feel unique. When you have diversity, you get people collaborating more because they're leveraging each other's strengths to go make it happen. Okay. So think about this for your own organization. Do you have the right level of trust, and what should you do there? Are you encouraging people to share information and not hold information as power? Because whenever you're not sharing information, it's kind of like poor plumbing in a house, right? If you don't have water going to the different places where you need to take a shower and clean the dishes and everything, it's not very good. So if you don't have information flowing all the different places in your organization automatically, and you're relying only on processes, you're probably too slow that way. Okay. And so in your last resort, think about processes. The biggest problem I see in organizations sometimes is say something is wrong, not working. And I say, well, what do you think the solution is? And the first someone says is, I think we need a new process. And it's probably not the first thing. Probably there's a lack of trust in information sharing, which would make the process much simpler if they had to revise it at all. So I'd say is, if you want a high performing team, invest time in making the informal work and not rely on the formal. Because if you're relying on processes to create the performance and the speed through the organization, you're just not going to get there fast enough. And we're going to talk later today, but you really have to focus on your key people, because they're going to be the role models for the others in this regard. So, two things to remind yourself here. You know, think about enabling people to know each other well enough that they have their shared common interests, because they're more apt to pick up the phone and call each other and deal with issues or message each other quickly than to send emails and that. In fact, the success of my organization in terms of collaboration, I viewed with one behavior I was looking for, and that was that one. I wanted people to deal with issues in real time, pick up the phone, send a message quick, but not, and that means they trust each other well enough to maybe have a difficult conversation right away versus hide behind emails and CCs and so forth. And then, the second one is build a team with strong diversity. Now, if you have high diversity, and you have very diverse team, let me ask you a quick question. Are meetings always easy to facilitate with a very diverse team? Yes or no? What do you think? Are meetings always easy to facilitate? No, because everybody has different opinions and so forth. But that's where your real power is, in the team and utilizing everything. So some leaders like to hire everybody around them who are similar, and you have very, very safe meetings, but you don't have very productive solutions. So as a leader, I would say, as much as you can, work on your own adaptability, because in many ways you're like an orchestra conductor. You're there to have all these different instruments, different diversity in the room, make good music together. And so the more that you're organized and prepared around this, and the more you facilitate the right interaction, the higher performing team you will have. Okay. And remember, your performance is coming through the informal more than the formal. So you need the formal aspects of it, because that holds different departments or different things together, formal way. But you should always be working on that informal and making it stronger and stronger and stronger. In fact, if you lose a couple key people sometimes, you might lose that informal completely. And one last thing was interesting here is that when I was leading and I had people different locations, and I had to send someone on a business trip at that time, and I had two people I could send. I could send an introvert or I could send an extrovert, both with the same skills and everything, same abilities. Who do you think I sent for the business trip? The introvert or the extrovert? You type it in chat function, introvert or extrovert. Yeah, most of you are coming back extrovert. Yeah, because they would make more linkages. And when there was a problem in the future, they could say, well, call such and such in that person, call such and such. So I would say, have this as an outcome for yourself. How can you create an environment and encourage this type of real-time communication? And the way you'll do that is if people can learn from each other, the diversity, and if people have those common interests. Okay. Any questions or comments before I go on to the last key? If you want, you can type it in, or you can just maybe jump in and shout it out as well. Okay. Let me ask you guys a question. What's your biggest takeaway from today so far? Something that you could use. If you could type it into the chat function, what's your biggest takeaway from things that we covered so far today? So informal is formal, deal with the issues real time, encourage that. Diversity is very important. Have the outcome. Planting and watering, yep, very good. Trust, act today and create the future. Yeah. So if you think about it, we talked about direction, principles, right? We have visibility, collaboration. But here's one of the things: as you climb and climb, it's going to be the most important of all of it is alignment. Because when you start to have bigger and bigger jobs, a large portion of your job is keeping people aligned. Okay, in keeping alignment across the organization, or even alignment into customers or vendors, so that your people can perform better. And so there's effective collaboration at the operational level if you're aligning stakeholders and management at the higher level. In one of my jobs, in one of the last couple of jobs in the corporate world, I was driving tremendous change. And so I was spending almost 80 to 90% of my focus on making sure that the alignment was there. Because think about it, if you're asking your people to fight a ground war, but you're not giving them any air cover, they're not going to be very happy. And also, let me ask you this. Let's say that your people don't see you having strong peer influence, influence with your peers, and you're not creating good alignment, and you're causing them to do extra work in your area because you couldn't have good influence with people across, or even with customers or vendors. Do your people look at you? Just type it in the chat function. Do your people look at you as a very strong leader or a weak leader if they see you not having strong peer influence that way? What do you think? Yeah, weak, right? So it's so important to play positive politics. Positive politics is basically understanding other people's focus so that you can align what you want with what they want. But the thing is if you're not in the game, you're not going to be able to influence the game. And so if you really want high performance, you have to keep good, strong alignment so your people can perform. Because some things are not in their control. Yes, you want them to focus on the how and the what, but sometimes there's some alignment issues that only you can deal with. And if you don't give your people air cover, they're going to be less productive, and they don't have the power to do something about it. Only you have the power to do something about it. And so I always say, and I use it in many ways, uh, in many times, this story about Noah and the ark. And I say to people, I said, did Noah, if you think of the story from the Bible, did Noah start building the ark before it started raining or after it started raining? And everybody says, before. So, if you're going to play effective politics, you need to build those relationships before you need it. Okay. So I would say is that, if you're more a leader and not a micromanager, and you're not involved telling your people how all the time, and you're creating a strong direction that allows them to even figure out some of the what, you're going to have more time to keep this alignment this way, and to keep the alignment out into vendors and also customers, and to have your team be much more productive, right? If you're buried just trying to manage your team, then you're not going to have a high performing team, because you're not helping with the alignment that will make them even more successful. Okay. And so I would say work on building the relationships around you. And one tip I got from a boss one time, he said, when you go into any new job or you take on any new role, make a list of all the key people who have some influence on your decision making, and start building a relationship from the very first day. Because at some time you're going to need something from them. And if you don't have a relationship, they're going to look at you when they see you, and their wall is going to be put up, and you have to fight through, because they're saying, well, this person wants something from me. Okay. So those were the 5 keys in terms of high performance. But I want to give you two extras in terms of a bonus here: role models and input and advice. Okay, the first one is role models. If you look at this chart, and if you're, I think one of the other virtual classes I talked about this, but the role models are people who are high performance and high in behavior. And what I found with some leaders is this, is they say, well, that's my best people. They don't need as much of my help, so I'll help the rest. And you're slowing down the team and you're having less performance than you should. You should be investing in your role models, making them as strong as possible, have them help the rest, and you should be making sure that the bottom left don't steal your time. Okay. So what I found is that the more you invest in your role models, the more you're extending your influence throughout the organization, because your role models are an extension of you when you're not around. Okay. And the biggest thing I found, the biggest mistake I found with leaders is that you assume that your best people don't need your support. So you work on the rest and you're actually lowering the level of everybody. You should focus on growing your role models, have them help grow the others, and suddenly your organization is rising and lifting up and is higher performing. Also, you're creating your own replacement quicker, which means that you can climb quicker. Because sometimes if you don't have a good replacement, your boss is thinking, well, I can't move you because then this things will fall apart. And so you need to ensure that the things can live without you there. So keep in mind this for yourself. Maybe map your organization and with initials as to where these people are, and then put more effort in doing those role models. We have a question. How about the bottom left? Do not follow the role models. Try to, yeah. The bottom left, I mean, top right, you want to make uncomfortable so that they keep growing. Bottom left, you want to make super uncomfortable that they leave. Now, the bottom left, the biggest thing that you have to drive with the bottom left is performance. But the thing which makes them change or leave is how you put pressure on certain behaviors you expect from them. Because performance, they're used to not delivering. But often, if you put expectations on their behavior, they will often leave by themselves. I had one company I was a consultant with in Sweden, a technology company. We had a few people in the bottom left. One of them was in a site totally away from everybody else, so it didn't cause as much problems. But two of the others, we put expectations on their behavior that they didn't want to live with, and they left by themselves. Okay, so high performance and your impact on the organization is driven through your role models. You should be investing more time in your role models than you think, and just don't assume that they don't need your help. Okay. Second thing here is also, if you want people to buy in and you want them to be involved, you're going to have to ask your people for their input into solutions. And you're going to have to play the right politics, ask also peers for their advice. There's an interesting thing about the psychology. We're going to think about this. We're going to support things we provide input to. So let's say that we don't even agree totally in the whole solution, but if we gave part of an input or advice and you're using it, all right, there, and the other person using it, you're going to want your input or your advice to be successful. So you're going to help support that. I'll give you a tip. The great thing to do if you want to keep growing, find out someone who's really successful and knowledgeable about this, buy them lunch and ask them for advice. Successful people will always want their advice to be successful, so they'll always do something for you at the same time too. This kind of concept too came from one guy that when he was creating the X Prize many years ago, and he was asking people for money to fund his prizes. And these were prizes for breakthroughs, either in space or medicine or whatever. And he said this. He said, if I asked for money, I got advice. And if I asked for advice, I got money. you know, but the most underutilized tool of leadership and influence is asking. Because people, when you ask and you use their input or their advice, they're always going to help you to make that input or advice successful, and you're going to move forward. So they're going to support things, maybe even if they don't even buy into totally the total solution, they're going to help you with their part because they want their part to be successful. So those are the two things I would say, additional things to think about. Invest more times in your role models, and, invest more time in asking. But if you're asking, be prepared to use what you're getting in terms of that input or advice. So here's some ideas for you. Here's some takeaways. When you get the materials, the slides after the session, I'll either send it out later today or tomorrow morning. Here's some takeaways that you can have from the session. So these are some of the key things to focus on to get that high performance. And what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to do a quick reflection. Then I'll open up for some questions. Any questions? Do a quick reflection. What do you take away from our session today? Is there anything you can do more of? Is there anything you're already doing, but now you know why it's important to do it? Is there anything you should do less of? Okay, so just take 1 minute, do your own reflection. And remember this, reflection is the opportunity to give yourself advice. Okay, so take 1 minute, do the reflection. And if you have any questions, just put them in the chat function. So yes, will there be a recording, and I'll be sending a link to the recording as well as the slides after this session. Okay. So do your reflection. Because if you have all these ideas and you never reflect, you never figure out how you're going to take action on something. So reflection is probably one of the key things we always have to do, because we always take more action on what we learned, either from a training or from what we learned during the week about something, and we adapt and we change faster just with one single habit, reflecting. Okay? So before we go on, let me ask you any questions, comments on today? So nothing coming through? Okay. What's one thing you're going to commit to do differently based on what we covered today? So type it into the chat function. What one thing will you do differently based on the ideas I shared today? Work more on the role models and influence your peers? How about the rest of you? Work on the relationships, the collaboration? Yeah, keep growing your role models. It makes life so much easier. Yep. Enable the glue. Yep. Very good. So a couple things for you. If I can help in any way, these are the things I really work on, and really helping people to stop micromanaging, overcome their fear of letting go, and help their people really achieve more. An idea to do through coaching, keynotes, and also I run some leadership programs I could do for your leadership teams. So keep in mind those, and just imagine if your team was able to deliver more on their potential, taking ownership, deciding on their own, and it wouldn't always be on you. One thing I'll mention is next month's virtual masterclass is going to be on leading yourself well in a digital world. So if you have an opportunity, I'll send this link along when I send the slides, but I'm going to be focusing on what are those key things in terms of keeping you in the driver's seat in a world that is, crazy these days with everything being digital, information everywhere, people working from anywhere, etc. So I'll be talking about some of the keys on that next month. And so the last thing is to say thank you for being here today. If you want, I'll create a special WhatsApp group for the attendees of today, and you can get daily reminders for up to 6 weeks after this session. So if you'd like to have those daily reminders, just send me an email or send me an SMS with your mobile number and name, and I'll create a special WhatsApp group for the attendees of today. Now, if you attended some of my other sessions, you're probably getting those or you had those before. So thank you very much. I'll be on here for a few extra minutes if there's any questions, and I'll turn off the slides and open it up and have the screen, because I had so many people on today, I was just looking at myself. Any comments or questions for the remaining time? You can just shout it out if you want, or type it into the chat.
Mark, thank you for your presentation. José Campos speaking from Portugal.
Hi.
Most important, and what I'm used to say is that sometimes these behavioral aspects, we need to continue working on them continuously. Psychologists said that 21 days, and then after that it's somehow integrated and considered more in your natural behavior. But the difficulty sometimes is to continue doing and doing and doing every single day during a period of time. Yeah. So this is a difficult part, mostly to say thank you for the presentation. Yeah. See you in next masterclass. Thank you.
That's a great comment. You know, let me share with you one thing to think about this. Would you rather be disciplined for 30 to 60 days and create a habit, or would you rather force yourself to do it for the rest of your life? Because if you're disciplined to create a habit, it becomes automatic. And here's what I found. The most successful, they put those two options in their head. Can I be disciplined for 30 to 60 days and create a habit? Or do I want to try and force myself to do it? And they say, hey, I'll invest the 30 days to create the habit. If you do that, if you create the habit, it becomes automatic. Everybody's performance goes up with one or two extra good habits they put in place, because everything else becomes automatic and you don't have to think about it. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah. Hey, good afternoon, Mark. Yep. I was just thinking, when on the slide where you discuss Y power and boss power.
Yep.
Boss powers, could we break that down a bit versus Y power? Because boss power, you said, is very much when people are telling you or telling people what to do. Right. But how would you characterize Y power? What are some of the hallmarks that you would recognize Y power?
I think Y power is always everybody's motivations, right? So whenever you're triggering into someone's personal motivation, that's Y power. When you're linking someone's personal motivations to the why of the company or the difference that you're making for that department and everything, that's Y power. Okay, that's the pull power. When you're forcing people or you're pushing people or you're creating fear in people, that's more of a push power. And so what you want to do is you want to create peer pressure. So when you have to actually push people to get something done, you can do it. And I'll give you another reason why you need to reserve some push power. Let me ask you a question. Everybody type in a chat function if you can. Do you like implementing a process that was developed in another department? And you have your own, but now you have to implement a common process developed somewhere else. No, right? But sometimes a common process in a company is important to just make sure things are held together. So there's sometimes you're going to have to push things through because you can't create enough motivation for people to do it without it. Okay. I learned this when I was implementing enterprise systems. I was not always giving them the best functionality that they had before with the new system. So sometimes I had to force it through because there's just no case. Yeah. Any other comments, questions? So let me ask you guys one final question and we'll finish off. On a scale 1 to 10, how valuable was today for you? On a scale 1 to 10, how valuable was it today for you? Wow, it's 9s and 10s. Good, good. So if you haven't done enough reflection, I would say reflect a few more minutes. What could you do differently? But I would just finalize with this. Remember, if you don't have a who, the who is always you. Okay? So your goal as a leader is to create an environment for your people to deliver high performance. Your goal as a leader is not to be the person that's needed to be there all the time for them to do it. They have to be able to do more on their own. I've never seen a high performance team led by a needy leader. Okay? I've never seen a high performance team led by a leader who is needy. Okay. So thank you very much, everybody. I wish you a great finish to your week. Look forward to the slides and the recording later today or early tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Brilliant.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Mark. Good afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.